Hello, so let's actually talk through examples of simplifying expressions. Let's have a look at number 1. We have 4x plus 6x take away x. Now, are you happy that they are all like terms because they all have just an x in? So now it's just a game of figure out exactly how many x's I have in total. Well, look, I start off with 4 of them, then I add 6 of them, so I end up with 10, but then I take away one of them, like take away x, take away one of them, so I end up with 9 of them. I end up with 9 x's. Does that make sense? Let's have a look at part 2. So I have 3xy plus 4x plus 6y take away 2xy. Well, the first thing I need to do is figure out what are the like terms. Well, are you happy that the 3xy is a term and I have a 2xy? They are like terms because they both have an x and a y in. Okay. The other two terms, there's no other terms in common. Like there's no other x terms with just an x in. There's no other y terms. There's no other terms with just a y in. So therefore, I just have to collect together the terms with both an x and a y in, and I'm done. So let's think. Well, I start off with 3 xy's, and I take away 2 xy's. Therefore, I'm just left with 1 xy. Now, I could write it as 1 xy, but to be honest with you, I'm just going to write it as xy. Okay, but don't forget my other two terms. I've also got plus 4x and plus 6y. So plus 4x. And that's my final answer. That is literally how I would leave it. Okay, let's have a look at the next one then. So this one's a little more tricky because we've got squared terms in, but just think about it in exactly the same way. So I'm looking here. I've got a 12x squared. I'm looking for another term with an x squared in. Now you notice here, I've got a 2x, but it's not an x squared term because there's not an x squared there. So I look here, oh look, there's another x squared term. Just do a quick scan, there's no other terms with x squared in. So I just focus on collecting together those first. 12x squared, and I take away an x squared. That leaves me with 11x squared, doesn't it? Okay, so now let's have a look at my other terms which I've got. So I've dealt with my x's, I can cancel those off. Let's have a look at my next one. So I've got a negative 2x. So I scan through and I find all the other terms with an x in. So there's another term with an x in there, minus 9x. So I start off with negative 2x and I take away 9x. Think about it, be careful. You're starting at negative 2, you're taking away 9x, you're moving further to the left. So therefore you must end up with negative 11x. Okay, so I've dealt with those now, dealt with my x terms. Now let's just deal with my remaining term, which is my y squared terms. So I end up with a 6y squared, and I'm taking away 10y squared. They're both the same because they both got a y squared in. So 6y squared, take away 10y squared. If that's tricky for you, think about it the other way. Think about 10y squared, add 6y squared. I can totally do that because I can change the order of the terms because I'm just adding them. Okay. So negative 10 plus 6 makes negative 4, which means I must have negative 4y squared. Okay. Let's have a look at my next one then. So I have 5a plus 6b plus 7ab minus 9a minus 2b plus 6x. Let's first of all find all the terms which have got an a in. So that's got my a term. That has got an a in, 7ab has got an a in, but I want a term with just an a in. So that's no good to me. Oh, I've got another one there, a 9a. So 5a, take away 9a, that leaves me with negative 4a. Okay, let's have a look at my b terms. Well, there's a b there. The 7ab I'm not interested in because it's got an a in as well. Here we go, minus 2ab. 6b, take away 2b, leaves me with 4b. Okay, so I end up with plus 4b. Remember, I put a plus there because that's the sign of my term. It's a positive 4b. Okay, let's have a look at the AB term then. There's no other ABs, and again, there's a 6x. There's no other x's in there. So I'll just write it as negative 4a plus 4b plus 7ab plus 6x. Now, you could, if you wanted to, if you really didn't want to start off with a negative, you could stick the negative 4a somewhere else. You could bury it somewhere else. For example, at the end. So just bury that at the end, and then I could move that across. And I could equally write it like this, and then I don't have to write the sign at the start because it's positive. But if you wanted to leave it how I just left it, that's entirely up to you. So finally then, 6a squared plus 5a plus 3ab minus 6b plus 7b squared minus 10b minus a. Right, let's break this down. Are there any other terms with an a squared in? No, there's not. So we'll just write 6a squared. That's my first term. Now let's have a look at my A terms. So I've got 5a there. Have I got any other terms with an a in? Yes, I have. The one at the end. There's another a term. Okay. Remember, the 3ab is no good to me because it's got a b in as well. Okay. So how many a's do I end up with? Well, 5a, take away a. I've got positive 4a. Okay. Now let's have a look at the AB terms. Well, there's no other terms with both an a and a b in, so I'm just going to write that as plus 3ab. Okay, let me just scooch this over. Now let's have a look at my b terms. Well, are there any other terms with a b in? Yes, there are. There's negative 6b and there's a negative 10b there. Be careful to catch those negatives, okay? Minus 6b minus 10b is minus 16b. And then finally, I haven't got any other b squared terms, so I'll just write 7ab. Sorry, 7. Okay, so that's how I'd leave it.